Terrific. Well, it's fabulous to have everybody joining us today. We've got a nice combination of Sky Island Alliance staff and volunteers, and hopefully future volunteers as well. Thank you all for joining us today to think about the intersection between wildlife and the dark sky. The nighttime environment is so important for many of the creatures that we love, including this badger behind me. This is one of my resident badgers that lives around my house in Tucson. And I really wouldn't have any idea that the badgers were around if it wasn't for wildlife cameras. So wildlife cameras, as you all definitely know, open our eyes into the wildlife community around us. And what we found through our border wildlife study that has been running for over a year, hooray, that the nighttime environment is when so many of the mammals in particular are active. Looking at the spring and summer into the fall last year, we found that 70% of all the mammalian, so all the mammals that we detected through our cameras at the border were active at night, which just shows that they are really adapted to hunting, to drinking, to finding their mates and shelter in the night. And so we really want to talk today about darkness. So thank you for being here. If you have any questions as we're going through today's training, please feel free to enter them into the chat box if you're joining us here on Zoom. If you're joining us on Facebook, please feel free to type your questions in there and we'll be monitoring that. I just want to really thank all of our supporters that have helped make our conservation of the Sky Island region possible. And I would like to acknowledge that the research that we do, the conservation work that we do happens on native land. I'm talking to you today from Tucson, Arizona, and this is the homeland of the Tohono O'odham and Pascua Yaqui people. So with that, I'm so excited to introduce Connie Walker. She is one of the leaders that developed the Globe at Night project, and she's going to tell you so much more about it. She lives here in Tucson and has been studying how dark the night is and where we have light pollution to help us figure out solutions to preserve and protect and restore our nighttime environment. So Connie, I'm going to pass it to you and thank you so much for being here.
It is superbly my pleasure. Let me get started on the screen share here, if you don't mind. And see if I do this correctly. I want to thank you. I'm assuming you can see that full screen?
Yep,
Okay.
it looks perfect.
And you can hear me fine, it sounds like. Hey, everybody. I am really so enthused about this project. It is such a worthwhile application of both arenas, the kind of citizen science world that Globe at Night resides in, and the wonderful world of nature that and the protection of animal wildlife that you are all doing. And I thank you so much, and I hope to get to see you in person tonight. I look forward to that. And so what I'd like to do here is just say a little bit about how to take some bright night sky measurements with a sky quality meter. And actually it has to sort of be done through the Globe at Night campaign. So I'll talk a little bit first about Globe at Night. And one of the first pictures I usually show people is this picture taken by a weather satellite, basically, looking down at the Earth and stitched together various images of the night sky around the Earth. And this was not taken too many years ago, but you can definitely see where the cities and where the countries are, basically, right? I mean, it's amazing how you can see them from space. And imagine living in those cities. If you looked up, what would you see, right? And this really kind of bothers me a lot of ways, not just because I'm an astronomer, but because of the loss of cultural heritage that we all face in this situation. And that things can be done about it if you light responsibly, right? You can try to preserve the kind of cultural heritage that has inspired, people like Van Gogh with his beautiful painting Starry Night, and literature that has been written like by sonnets by Shakespeare, or musical compositions like Holtz and the Planets. I mean, these things have inspired people for millennia, the night sky, the starry night sky, and not just astronomers, right? So So I say this in in hopes that it's a message that not only includes astronomers, but everybody, including you guys, in terms of trying to save the night sky in some sense. And so, what does that mean? What does light pollution actually affect? It affects energy and safety and consumption. This guy overlit the car sales lot, and can't see anything in there. So much glare. If you light it responsibly and you cover your lights, bingo, you're going to be able to see those cars if you have to have them on at night. And then there's health issues. There's all sorts of health issues I'll go into in a few minutes. I mean, well, I could say there's uh, differences. There's actually effects on circadian sensitivities, and they're disrupted and they cause obesity and depression and sleep disorders. And actually, they're related to diabetes in some sense. And basically, your melatonin levels, they get depleted. And that's what regulates your sleep and your sleep and your wakefulness. And that actually has ties, that depletion, that lack of melatonin actually has ties to a couple different kinds of cancers. So there's so many things that are involved here, not only having the energy issue with billions of dollars that are wasted each year and issues like glare or light trespass into your house at night when you're trying to sleep, but there's also the health issues and wildlife issues, which you are more aware of than I am. I'm assuming, but in my narrow view, I see that the habitats and the habits of animals are very, very negatively affected, and some, basically pushed to almost the brink of extinction. We're becoming threatened and endangered species, basically. And so, there's migrating birds that are confused by city lights. There's sea turtles that are hatching on shore that are trying to get back to the ocean but are distracted by lights on shore. There's so many different issues like that are need to be addressed. I have a trigger happy mouse, so excuse me every now and then it goes berserk on me. But anyways, so you have issues like this with animals, and so this washed out sky has a lot of effects on these different areas and not just on astronomy. And I'm going to have a plug for IDA for a minute, the International Dark Sky Association, of which Ruskin and Emily are married to each other. Ruskin leads this organization, and they have a wonderful promotion where there's 5 easy steps plus the 6th step is if you want joining IDA, the International Dark Sky Association. But it just tells you the kinds of things that you can do in your own home, basically, to try to protect the night sky. Lighting only what you need, and using energy efficient light bulbs, that they only be as bright as they need to be, not anything more. Shielding the lights, that means like directing the light downward with a shield so you don't see the source, but you do see the effect on the ground. Using timers or motion sensors when you can, and choosing what they call a warm white light bulb instead of it's kind of a crazy term, but to me it's backwards. But anyways, it's more of an amber colored or towards the red kind of light bulbs if you can, rather than something that's blue. So there's a lot of things here to consider that are very easy to implement, and that's how one way you can do your part in being a good steward of the night sky. And this, of course, will affect animals too if you do this. So another way, cutting right to the chase here, is actually getting involved with a citizen science program that's gone on for about 15 years now, all over the world, but originating here in Tucson. It invites people, citizen scientists, to measure the brightness of the night sky and to actually submit their observations to our website, globeatnight.org. From either a computer or a smartphone. And if you're out there taking your measurements, it's really, really beneficial to actually use your smartphone. I'm going to see if I can move this thing here. There we go. Okay. Yeah, that was your window. I had to move that to see what the words were on the slide. Okay, so about 30,000 or so measurements were taken last year, which is pretty good for Globe at Night, from almost 100 countries. And the campaign has reached over 230,000 in the last 15 years. And that's pretty good for a small little citizen science program like Globe at Night. And I'll tell you a little bit later a couple of ways these particular measurements are used that might interest you. But there's 10 days each month that this campaign is active. And those 10 days correlate with when the moon is not up in the first half of the night sky, which kind of makes sense because that's a natural light bulb in the night sky and you want to kind of avoid that. So you can kind of measure what kind of natural light pollution background you do have, i.e. no man-made lights. So anyway, so that's pretty much the intro for the globe at night. And one thing I'd like to mention is that the dots you see on the on the two maps here, it's about 10 years worth of points from Europe and another 10 years from the United States, pretty much. And those points, you'll see some darker ones and you'll see some brighter ones. And the very, very bright ones are actually noting the bright the night sky pretty much usually in the cities. And as you get further away, you'll see more darker points like in the west there of the United States, where we are, thankfully. So so that's what you'll see in maybe a couple more maps that we show here. And let me go to this. And I think if we get time, I'd like to kind of go to the website and go through a couple of the features there. But what you'll notice is at the very, very top of the slide here, you'll see the words observe, which is a very, very important page to me. At least it has things like the dates when the globe at night is active and other ancillary information on the page, like the 6 steps to go through to take your measurements. And then the report page obviously is incredibly important. And that's probably the most important, where you're going to enter your data. If you want to play with the maps, there's a maps and data page, which has all the years of data there. And resources has things like the different web pages in a couple different languages, but the actual report page in about 26 or 28 different languages. And we have postcards in almost as many languages as well. So that kind of thing, if you ever need that for any events, they're downloadable on that particular page. Okay, so so if you don't mind, I'd like to get in through the steps of what you do to get ready to do globe at night. And first and foremost, it's very logical. The whole thing is extremely logical and extremely simple. So you're probably gonna, agree at the end there that it's just all common sense. So, but the first thing is you should pretty much wait an hour after sunset or more. And you can find out, there's a handout that we have that you probably got from Emily. She probably gave you like 7 different handouts that I put together last night and sent to her to send to you guys. And one of those actually tells you the steps and stuff like that. And it says in there, it has a link to when sunset times are for whatever region you want. And of course you pick around where you're observing. And so you want to wait a good length of time after sunset, because any light at all from the sun or from whatever source might be up, you want to avoid, and so that you want to also make your eyes adjust to the darkness, and that for me takes about 20 minutes. For a young little kid, it takes about 10 minutes, and you guys are probably somewhere in between. So 15 minutes or so, you might want to wait outside to get your eyes adjusted to the darkness so you can reliably take a good measurement. So turning off lights, waiting more until after an hour after sunset sometime before midnight to take your measurement, and getting your eyes adjusted to the dark for about 15 minutes. So those are kind of the 3 steps there that you might want to consider. And then finding the constellation can be a challenge for some constellations. But this month, the constellation Leo is very, very evident. It is a beautiful backwards question mark that you can see pretty much from, well, we'll go over where it is exactly in a few minutes, but it's going to be in the southeast, about 9 o'clock at night or 8 o'clock at night. If you face southeast, you look about two-thirds of the way up in the night sky, before, about a third down from zenith, you will see the backwards question mark, and then this sort of like a rectangle or triangle part that is his derriere, basically. So So that is what we're going to see if you come tonight. He might be a little bit lower in the sky, but that's okay. We'll get a good idea for Globe at Night, which starts on Saturday. And then to take measurements, you want to go to the Globe at Night homepage, and that's the address shown here, globeatnight.org/webapp/. And you want to click on, or you can go to the main page and just click on the report tab, which both ways get you there to the report page. So that's the next step. And on the phone, it appears pretty much like this on the computer as well. But on the phone, this is what it looks like. If you are lucky enough to have a smartphone, I have a very old smartphone, but at least I have a smartphone, you can actually have your observation date and time and your location put in automatically. There is like, just have to, actually you have to say allow location access, I guess. It asks you that right when you get onto the app, and you just say you allow, and then it'll fill in the first two steps for you automatically. Otherwise, you can just put in the information yourself if you'd like, whichever makes you happy. So, and let's see. And then the third, well, I call it the third step actually, because later on you'll see what I mean by that. But we have a bunch of magnitude charts, I call it, and a magnitude is just another word for brightness. Astronomers call it magnitude. And I think the amateur astronomers in your audience, or the dark sky advocates from the chapters of IDA, the International Dark Sky Association, will know this probably. But so okay, so you have 7 different charts that you're going to be seeing in just a minute, and these are 3 of them. The first is what they call chart 3, then chart 5, and chart 7 from top to bottom. And you'll see that as the number gets higher, you're looking at darker and darker skies. Okay, so so you're seeing fainter and fainter stars as the chart number increases, and more stars obviously in the night sky. And so chart 1 would be like in New York City, where you can maybe see 12 stars in the entire sky. And chart 7 will be like the national parks, which if you have, a really good eyesight, you'll be able to see a couple thousand stars in the night sky. So these are very important charts, because this is what's going to determine your night sky brightness. Whichever one you choose and you leave it at that choice, that is your measurement. Okay. And so just to go into a little bit more about where to find Leo and what the charts look like. This is the basic shape of Leo. If you could see my cursor, can you see my cursor, Emily? Okay. And then here's the backwards question mark. Okay. And Regulus is that dot. That's the brightest star in Leo the lion. That's the brightest star. So that it's the end of the backwards question mark. And you have this little rectangle I mentioned, and a little triangle that's his derriere there. And that's the basic shape you'll see. And you can see how he is part of that, the ecliptic. So that that's, I hate to say it, but the astrological signs of Gemini, Cancer, Regulus, and Leo and Virgo. Oops, my goodness gracious. And astronomers shudder at the word astrology for a variety of reasons. So sorry about that. And so that's where you'll find it. Probably if you know where any of these are, you can find Leo. And also you have Procyon, which is a very bright star in the night sky. But below that, there is Sirius. And that's one of the brightest stars you'll see. And that'll help you find Leo as well, between Sirius and Arcturus, basically, 2 bright stars. So, and the other charts you can see here. Okay, this is the chart 4, 5, 6, and 7 get progressively you can see fainter and fainter stars, and until chart 7 is basically, to me, I can almost not see. I can't define too well the constellation of Leo because it's just too many stars in the night sky. But basically, that's what you see. Oh, did someone want to say something? I heard a voice. No? Okay. Uh, and then we have cloud cover. So the really important measurement, if you have a smartphone, you don't need to put 1 and 2 in. Number 3 will be your measurement, and I'll show you that up close and personal in a minute. But then number 4 is your second measurement, which is basically just 4 pictures. And they show no clouds in the first picture to a lot of clouds in the fourth picture. So you just kind of match what is closest to your conditions, your weather conditions, and hopefully it's not the last one, the cloudy one, because we can't really use that data. So anyway, so that's number 4, and I'll show you that in a minute. And then number 5, if you're going to have a sky quality meter, and this is basically what it looks like. It's about as big as a pack of cards, and I think I already packed mine for tonight. I'm sorry, but I'll show you tonight, and I'll bring them with me to distribute to you guys. We have about half a dozen of them for you, and so it's extremely easy to use. This is the part where I don't know, they say all eyes on deck, but I want all ears on deck here. And how to use them. So this is the configuration. There is a sensor that's on the very top of that meter. It's like what the astronomers call photometer, light sensor basically. And then the readout you can see obviously, and the start button. I'm telling you, all this is pretty obvious. So you're gonna be having it overhead in your and holding it straight overhead, and you're gonna try not to have a lot of things blocking that path to the sky as much as possible. And let me show you more on that. So I put down this drawing is not quite accurate because he should be putting his arm straight up towards zenith. But anyways, whoops, it's what I had. So you're gonna simply hold the sky quality meter up above you, straight up towards zenith, and you're gonna stay very still, because in a very dark sky, like I hope it is, and I'm sure it is down near the border, you're gonna hear this ticking, tick, 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 and you really should not move while it's happening. As soon as that ticking stops, the reading will pop up on the meter. You hopefully you have that towards you and you can read it, and then put that into the Globe at Night webpage. There is one thing though about the Globe at Night webpage. If you're too far from a cell tower, which you probably might be, I've also provided you guys with either an Excel file or a PDF file in which you can just list all your data and put it in later. Okay, so you list your location and date and time, and your measurements both for Globe at Night by eye and by the SQM. And you really don't need to put in things like, there's 2 areas for comments. You don't really need to do that. But in putting in the sky quality meter, you want to take about 6 measurements. You don't have to. You guys can agree. Whatever you do, just do it the same way. That's all I say. If you agree only to take 3 measurements and average, that's fine. I wouldn't take any less than 3. If you want to take 5 and average, that's fine too. Usually the first one we take out of usually 6 is discarded, because the actual sky quality meter has to be left out with you as you're getting dark adapted, maybe even longer, to get kind of cold enough to be at a good ambient temperature, and so it can take good measurements. So we usually, believe it or not, throw out the first measurement. You don't have to, but it would be a good idea. So you guys decide as to how you do that, and try to do that the same way. Another really crazy thing is that, this is only through years and years and years of using this instrument. It has, when it looks up at the night sky, what it's seeing is not like a circle. It's actually more of an oval for some reason. So I usually always have people, if you really want to have measurements from different parts of the border, kind of be, being able to relate one area to another in terms of measurements. Then I would say stand like east-west and hold the device right in front of you, or north-south or something like that, but do it the same way for everybody, because believe it or not, that might make a difference in your final measurement. Now, the ones I'm bringing you tonight are all within, okay, you're gonna hate me for this, but a half a magnitude per square arc second difference in what the response of each of the that I found when I tested them, and that's pretty good. So they are you could say basically calibrated with respect to one another, although they won't necessarily give exactly the same measurements. They'll just be off by the largest measurements. The range will be about a half of magnitude per square second. Now, what does that mean? Magnitude is just a brightness, square second is just an area. So it's a brightness per unit area that we're measuring with these things. So it's not exactly like what you see with your eyes at with globe at night, but it takes into consideration this very small cone above you um, of data. And actually, it's bigger than that. It's about 20 degrees across. And so, anyways, getting into too much detail. So, so again, so it's very easy to do this still, and you want to make sure that you get sort of a cadence down as to how you're going to take your measurements, and because you should have a red flashlight, not a white one that's going to skew your measurements, and you should only have it on when you're recording. You really should turn it off otherwise. So I usually have like a headlamp that with a red light but you could have just a flashlight that you cover with a red balloon if you want to, or even red cellophane or something. But don't make that a white light if you can help it. And turn it on only when you need it, not when you're taking measurements. So all these little tidbits are kind of crazy, but they're commonsensical when you think about it. And so I mentioned a little bit about some of the things to consider, but this is a half an hour. Yeah, so the first point here I already stated, and of course it's logical about the moon not being up in the night sky when you're taking measurements. Hopefully it's a clear sky, and I think you all know not to stand underneath a street light or something, and you won't be underneath a street light basically when you're out near the border. So that's just a usual line I give. And and you're going to get this too as a PDF, so you can look at slide 17 and notice that the link here, timeanddate.com, astronomy/search.html, that gives you where you can go for, when the moon rises and sets and sun rises and sets. You probably need to get something called astronomical twilight, which is, when the sun is between 12 and 18 degrees below the horizon. And you'd want to be at below 18 degrees, but hey, if you're below 12 degrees, that would be really great. When the sun is, not you, but so, sorry. So somewhere at an hour after sunset, I usually tell people around Tucson, especially, that's what you want to do until about midnight, when the moon might be coming up at the time of globe at night. So anyway, so let's see, what else do we have here? So this is just, if you're kind of curious about what the numbers from the meter, what they mean, you're going to get numbers probably close to 21 where you are down there, which is really good. It's a dark site. 22 would be awesome. Beyond 22 point something, I wouldn't, it doesn't usually go up darker than that anywhere that I've been. And I think after 23, the meter, it's so dark that you can't really trust it too much after 23, but I've never seen 23. So it's and then 16 is a pretty polluted sky. Here in town, I get even worse than 16 sometimes. Out where I live, it's like an 18 or a 19. It's about 10 miles away from city center. And what does that correspond to in terms of magnitudes in the city center? About 3 or 4. If you just use the regular globe at night, the third chart or the fourth chart, this is what the city center shows. What you get out to where I live 10 miles away is about magnitude 5. So you start seeing the Milky Way galaxy at magnitude 5. So so you'll get all used to this. It kind of is a blur of information, but I think it becomes easier as you get into it. So to summarize, this is pretty much the steps. So you go to the web app shown here, the links are shown here. You, in steps 1 and 2, if you have a smartphone, that goes in there automatically. Otherwise, you type in your date, time, And you could just put for your location, if you don't have a smartphone and you have to input the location, you just put your street address or something like that. We don't keep that information. It translates into lat long, latitude and longitude. We never keep your personal information. So don't worry about that. It just goes in as the database and we don't know who took it or anything like that. So no worries in that regard. And you can actually go into night mode, which is something I forgot to tell you, which is the screen turns pinkish, right? So you don't have this bright thing hitting you in the face, this white light. So that's a benefit as well. And that's steps 1 and 2, basically. And then step 3 is your measurement. And remember, so you see those, let me put my cursor here. Goodness gracious. You see these small little windows of I call them thumbnail images. These small little ones at the bottom of the cell phone here on the lower left. These are your choices. And when you click on one, the bigger image appears right above it. And this I didn't get that to be changed to Leo. So Orion, which was last month, excuse me. And so you kind of compare what you see in the night sky with the chart, and you're looking for the faintest star. You're not counting stars, and God forbid, excuse me, but if you're down at the border, you're going to see some beautiful night sky, and you're not going. I don't want you there all night counting. So please just look for the faintest star that you can see and try to find it on your map, whichever map you can find it on first. You know, from the lowest chart numbers to the higher chart numbers is the chart you want to stay on. And by staying on that chart, that's your measurement. So it's very, very easy. A lot of stuff pictorial here so that we can do it in many different countries. And then as I mentioned before, you have a choice of 4 weather conditions, 4 images of weather condition from clear to very, very, very cloudy. And so you just click the one that's nearest what you have under conditions during the observations. And then, of course, we talked a lot about the sky quality meter measurement. You are going to put it into where it says, see, you guys are over the image here. So let's see. Okay, so it says SQM reading. That's where you put it in that little white box there. And so it should be, you know, a couple digits, a period, another couple digits is what you're going to see, just like it is on the device itself. And you don't have to put the serial number, but it does help us in case there's different batches that were manufactured, basically, and we kind of sometimes keep track. Nothing has ever really happened, but it's nice to know because some performance of the 8000 series is actually might be improved from the 3000 series. So, you know, you kind of have to know what they calibrated against each other, and only really the company knows that information, but it's nice to keep track just in case there's a question about the data. So if you, and to do that, I'll have to show you tonight how to do that because it's not, you have to press it once for the reading, and you press it twice and you hold it down and wait for the 4th number, believe it or not. And that's your reading, your serial number, not your reading. But so I'll show you tonight, and because that is, but again, that's not something you don't have to do. It's up to you. Okay. And let's see, did I forget anything on this? I don't think so. And there's a close-up and personal shot of where you hit the submit button, and that's all you have to do for step 6. The paragraph above is for a group that we partner with called SciStarter, which has about 3,000 citizen science programs, and I think most of them are actually on wildlife and stuff like that. So Emily, we might want to talk about this later, but they allow us to get to know the volunteers. They have like a dashboard, and we can actually get to know who the volunteers are if they want to let us know. So it's kind of neat in that regard. But anyway, and I wanted to show you too, oops, trigger happy, honest goodness. Okay, so I wanted to show you the spreadsheet that is available as one of the 7 or 8 files that I sent last night to Emily, and hopefully she has had time to send them to you, or she will. And this one is just a basic sheet. It comes either as a PDF or as an Excel spreadsheet, whichever you'd like to do, writing down on the PDF or actually putting it into the computer with the Excel spreadsheet. And then what you could do, if you know, this is something you could use there on paper, say, when you're taking your measurements down at the border, and if you don't have cell phone connections, And then later on, you take it back and put it into the computer. And remember though, you want to put the location, the right, location in terms of latitude and longitude, or, yeah, because you have to have latitude, longitude there. So you're probably gonna have to have a device that kind of tells you lat long. And I think that all cell phones might have that somewhere, but we can explore that a little bit later. And then of course your observation date and time, along with your measurements. All right, and that's pretty much, we're almost toward the end, but would you like me to stop here? Or do you want me to go on a little bit later with a couple other slides, Emily?
I think it would be great if you don't mind sharing the observations. And just for everyone who has questions about what's happening tonight and how to get more information at the border, when Connie wraps up, we'll give some more insight into how to sign up for working with us on the border. So hang tight. We'll get to all those details. And so, yeah, please feel free to continue, Connie.
Oh, okay. There's just a lot of great ways that people have been using the data. Um, and primarily we like to see changes over time because we can tell when a certain area is getting worse and if we have to strengthen laws in that particular area or take some other kinds of actions. And that's been really, really important. So things with lighting ordinances, things with dark sky oases, if you want to find dark sky oases, or if you're having some effects on animals, human health, safety, energy consumption, a lot of things that have been used in conjunction with the globe at night data, which has been really great. And I just, what I'm rushing is, I think you probably have a lot of other things to do, but I want to show you just 3 examples of that, the way the data is used. Let me just see if I can go. This was cool. And this is for the dark sky advocates in the audience. if you really have the hankering to do a little bit of a sort of a grid map of your city, we have another program for that called Adopt a Street that I can talk about another time. But this is what these people did in Norman, Oklahoma, and amateur astronomers and high schoolers did this, and they brought it to their city council as evidence why they should strengthen their lighting ordinances, and they succeeded. It took a couple of years, 2 years, but they succeeded, which was amazing. And again, you can see the chart on the right on the left-hand side there tells you what the dots mean in terms of brightnesses. So magnitude 1 is like New York City, remember? So these were really pretty bad lights around the university in the center of the image there. And then Tucson had its own BioBlitz in 2011, which was fantastic. And the National Geographic sponsors this. It should be like every year there's a national park that is sponsored. And Tucson has 2 national parks that flank the city. And so we had, let's see, we had Boy Scouts, I think, out on the western part of the Saguaro National Park West over here, taking measurements over the, sorry, over in the East Park. I'm trying to do it so I don't mess up here. But east we had the rangers, because that's a lot of backcountry there. And we had amateur astronomers and the general public taking data along 4 streets in Tucson. This made media, news, public news, news stations and stuff came out and interviewed everybody. And we found that there was 100 times brightness difference between the city center and the darkest part on the eastern part of the Rincon's Mountains on east of Tucson. So that was pretty cool kind of study, I would say. And venture with so many people involved. It was wonderful, just like you guys, so many people involved. And then this one is the Arizona Game and Fish asked us to use the globe at night data, and they had these wonderful trails that they had. I learned how they did this too. They put little radios on the. I went out with them at one point, and they caught a number of the bats, and on a certain type of bat, the lesser long-nosed bat, they put radios on their feet, on their little legs, I should say, and released them again. And there were 13 of them. One went off to Mexico somewhere, but the other 12 were pretty well behaved, and they did this trip every night from where they roost in the Saguaro National Park, about 25 kilometers to Push Ridge. And they ate basically, came back by morning, and they would inherently avoid city center. This is the coolest thing on earth. And we had to figure out was it due to light pollution? Was it due to the vegetation in the region? Was it due to the hummingbird feeders in people's homes and all these kinds of things? So it was basically three basic reasons. One was the light pollution, but it wasn't necessarily just light pollution. So they decided that that corridor for this threatened and endangered species of bat we could not take this to get to the city council to get the laws even stronger than they are now in Tucson. So it was kind of a kind of interesting study. You wouldn't believe the math that was involved, but there you go. And it's a map. Our students took 3,500 SQM measurements. So if you could believe it, and very evenly distributed all over town to make this contour map. So it was a labor of love in many ways. So these are just dates for the future. You can see the dates starting on Saturday for 10 nights in April. And should you be involved with other projects, there's the dates for the rest of the year. And one that's not shown there is actually during Christmas week. if you're that much of an ardent globe at night person. So that's about it. And now we can entertain questions, and you can let me know what was not clear, and I can try to answer your questions. I'd be happy to do that. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Connie. Yes, please, if you have any questions, feel free to pop them into the chat and we'll work to address them. So what's happening now is we are getting the information out. Connie is sharing all of her wisdom with all of us about how to do the Glow at Night project. And then tonight, Skyland Alliance staff are going to work with Connie to actually practice real time with her so that we can be good resources to all of you as you go and try it yourselves. So my request, if you're available tonight, is to go out wherever you live, wherever you have access to, and try to do a test measurement. We're not exactly in the window yet, but you can go out and start to get oriented, look for Leo. And if you have any questions, you can let us know even after this webinar. So try that tonight. We are interested in this next Globe at Night campaign window that starts on April 3rd, Saturday, in getting as many measurements as we can at the U.S. Mexico border, about 70 miles southeast of Tucson. We have our border wildlife study going on through the Patagonia Mountains, through the San Rafael Valley, and into the Huachuca Mountains. And we suspect that this is a very dark area, but we don't know how dark. And we don't know how much of a contrast that is from other parts of the border to the west and to the east. So our hope is, with all of your help, we will be able to take these dark sky measurements over the next 10 days between the towns of Nogales and Douglas. So what we'll ask you to do, Zoe, I'm going to hand it off to my colleague, Zoe Fulham, who's our community science manager, and she's going to describe a little bit more about how we're going to be assigning people to different parts of the border. And what's very important is, if you want to work with us on this, please send Zoe an email message, and then we'll be following up, sending you out all the great materials that Connie has mentioned, and help pairing you up with the best place for you to do your measurements. We will only have a very small number of the SQMs. So we're going to be working to have a good subsample across this 80-mile stretch. So if you're really serious about it and you want to try your hand with an SQM, you'll be able to check one of those out with us, but we just have to coordinate the schedule, and we're going to be passing those like batons around among our group. So with that, Zoe, take it away.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Connie, for all that information. I hope you guys are all as excited as we are about this project. But as Emily said, I'm just going to pull up here, kind of give you an idea of what where we're talking about. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Can you guys see that? Yeah. Okay, great. So as Emily said, we have big dreams of eventually getting to the border for its entire stretch. But right now we're going to focus on the area where we've been working on our border wildlife study, and about 50 additional miles. So we're talking about just a little over 80 miles. So here we are up in Tucson, from Nogales down here, and then all the way to Douglas on the eastern side. So this is, let's see as I zoom in. So here you can see these yellow points. These are where we have our wildlife cameras, spans about 30 miles along the border. And I know a lot of you on this call have actually been down here and know that area. So we're going to do some measurements there, as well as expanding about 10 miles to the west and then 40 more miles to the east. So what I've done here is I've just done approximately a location approximately every mile that we like to take a point. And these are all approximate. As all of you know who have been down by the border, there's not always continuous roads. You're not going to exactly be able to get to these coordinates that I'll give you. But you can get us as close as you can. And if we can actually be on those border roads when there is a border on the US side for all of us, then that'd be great. If not, we're any point within half a mile of the border, we can go ahead and count for this phase one. So let me just zoom in a little bit more. So I've kind of divided these into sections, and as Emily said, for anyone doing a dark sky measurement anywhere is going to be great and helpful for globe at night. If you do want to delve in and get down to this border region, I've gone ahead and made up a sign-up sheet that I can, as you guys reach out to me, we can assign people to different areas based on your interest, or if it's easier for you to get towards Nogales or Douglas. So basically, we've just divided. So it's an 84 mile stretch that we're going to be working on for this April window. Hopefully, if it goes well, we'll continue with the next months as well and kind of expand east and west from these central 84 miles. But I've basically just divided it into different sectors, and I've given some approximate coordinates, some access notes. Like I said, this is all approximate. We don't need it to be exactly every mile, but this will just kind of help you get an idea. And in some areas where there is a continuous border road there, you can just, drive along and look at your odometer and approximate that way. So that's all I wanted to share. And when you guys do reach out and let me know you're interested, I'll give you access to this Google Drive folder that has a lot of the resources Connie was talking about as well as the sign-up sheet, the data sheet that can be printed, and some of these other helpful things. And then I've also included, if you really want to dive in on the GIS side, I've made a Kmz layer that you can download and put on your computer or on your phone and kind of see those coordinates that I created. Again, approximate, but just if that's going to help you. If not, you can you can use your smartphone. You could just type in the coordinates and kind of have that to help guide you. But there's lots of ways to go about it, and we'll try to make it as painless and fun as possible. So that's all I have to share on that. Any questions on location or want to see that map again? Feel free to type in the chat box.
Great. So there's a question, Zoe, about are we going to be looking for people taking measurements on multiple nights, and what would that look like?
Good question. So for this first phase for Sky Island, our goal is to get within this 9-10 day window is to get to all of these points just once, I think, Emily. I guess if some people have the sky quality meters and others don't, we could try kind of prioritize and maybe do double in that case. But basically, I think it's a big enough bite to try to get to all 84 of these. So once we'll
exactly. So we're going to help coordinate with you if there's a particular area that you're interested in and you're willing to go for multiple nights. We could sign them out to you, but you can go out any of the nights within the campaign window. So if you went out on the 3rd and then you could go back again on the 10th, that would be great. They all count. Connie has a comment about that.
Yeah. I think honestly, it's not easy to get down there from wherever you live, probably. So one time for taking measurements would be, for me, for Globe at Night, I can only speak for, is just perfectly fine. And when I mentioned taking 6 SQM measurements, that's just so you can average them, and you can list them all if you want to, or average them and put them into the sky quality meter and to the app on that line for the sky quality meter measurement. It's really it's really up to you. But one night, one measurement for us would be just excellent. Yeah, and this is a basis. This is forming a basis, a foundation for when you go back, like next year, if they put in lights at the border, right? Uh, you want to know what the differences are and how much worse the situation is for the animals and for the night sky. So, so just getting that basis, getting that one night of measurements would be absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great point. We really want to document the dark quality of this place so that we can protect it. So I think folks are trying to think about how many points might be feasible to do within a single night's worth of measurement. And if you assume that you can do a couple hours, if you're a night owl enough to do that, starting an hour after sunset, one of the key things, just to reiterate what Connie was describing, is you need to be able to drive to the point, let your eyes adjust. So turn off your headlights if you were driving, be outside in the dark for 10 to 15 minutes before you would do your reading. So if you're driving, and some of these stretches, it's going to be pretty quick to just drive the mile. So I'm optimistic that if you can readily drive, you could do 4 points within a 2-hour stretch. But in some of these places, it's a little bit more rugged, and we recognize that that might be more than possible. But we're going to be trying this for the first time ourselves too, this one, this April.
Well, we sort of cheated in Tucson when we did our measurements. I had a moonroof in my car, and
Oh, that
you had someone driving and someone taking measurements and putting down, going through the moonroof. It was really very, very easy. We'd go every mile and take the measurements.
Okay, so bring the moonroof if you have it.
So we've got a bunch of comments coming in, and there's been some questions about whether border lights are actually turned on. And that would be, I'd share that question to my colleagues if anyone knows about the closest places where border lights actually might be turned on to our area. That's not a question I can answer at the moment. Part of what we will be doing is helping to make sure that Border Patrol is aware, especially if you're on the public land area in Coronado National Forest. We will notify them and let them know that we'll be doing this. So we can help coordinate that. So if you do get in touch with us, that's something we can help with. And Connie, what is the latest time at night that measurements can be taken for the upcoming campaign window?
Yeah, I was just, I was just writing that person. Yeah, I think I sort of did a check a while back, and before midnight during April 3rd through the 12th would be good to take measurements in, because I think the moon is not up before midnight.
Got it. Okay. Another question was about the use of the sky quality meters. We most likely will be passing them back and forth in the Tucson area. So we have our wonderful student collaborators from Round River Conservation Studies. They'll be taking the first batch out. They're going to be working in the Patagonia Mountains and through the San Rafael Valley starting this weekend. And then we'll be able to cycle those out. So if you are really interested in using the equipment, please let Zoe know via email, and we'll figure out the best place to coordinate a date and time and place to pass the SQM to you, and then to pick it back up so we can hand it off to the next person.
Yeah, there's one tiny thing about the SQM. I have them in well, you'll see they're in a couple of plastic things with the directions from the company, and they're in a white box. So I would really love it if it could stay that kind of way.
Absolutely.
when they're returned, yeah.
Okay, we'll make sure they're in good condition. Okay, so just to sum up, if you're interested, please send an email message to Zoe at skyislandalliance.org. Share any details if you already know where you'd like to be working, and we can follow up with you, sending you materials and coordinating which part of the border you'll sign out to do measurements. We're going to be aiming to do these measurements between April 3rd and April 12th. And the best time is an hour after sunset, and it sounds like up until midnight. So you've got sort of a 3-hour window to get as many miles as you can done, which is fantastic. And if we do have some overlap, that's great. More than one data point at each place is great too. So it's not going to be a problem if you accidentally hit the same mile marker that someone else might on a different night. That would be really interesting information for us as well. Okay. Well, I think those are the last of the questions. I hope I haven't missed any questions in the chat. So we look forward to hearing from you. And I hope that everyone, no matter what, will have a new appreciation for looking up at the constellations and the stars and thinking about some simple things that you can do around your house to help protect the nighttime environment. So Connie has shared her email address if you want to be in touch with her as well. And Connie, thank you so much for teaching us about Globe at Night. We hope we can share really excellent data back to you from the border.
Well, I thank you very much for the opportunity, and I wish all of you a safe few weeks now, and good luck with the project. I hope you all get involved because it sounds so terrific.
We look forward to sharing the results with everyone. Okay, well, thanks so much. We'll say good night and happy stargazing.